Checking in on the opposition party in the UK, the Conservative Party, and for my UK audience, you probably saw this story yesterday. One of the leadership hopefuls, Robert Jenrick, talking about we should play a Star of David at every entry port so people know that we support Israel. Obviously, stupid lunacy designed to grab the headlines. But a couple of things that stuck out to me that I want to point out in this update. And I also think it's things that generally, when you see stories like this that grab the headlines, you should be looking for what's not being reported about it. So, two things. Firstly, where was this comment made? So, he made this comment at the Conservative Friends of Israel event. Um, why do we have friends of an apartheid state within a political party? Kind of crazy. Can you imagine any other country being accused of what Israel is being accused of? And we have a group that is friends of that country, a massive lobby, which described as you can see here, one of the strongest lobbies, probably the strongest lobby in the UK. Hmm. Even more sensational was what he went on to say in the speech, which is that he believes that we should move the UK embassy to Jerusalem. Now, the way Jerusalem is reported in mainstream media, you probably heard stuff like Israel and Palestine dispute the territory, or they'll say something like, "Oh, Jerusalem is such a holy place that is important to Christians, Muslims, and Jews alike." And so, essentially, when they say that, they try to flatten the argument to say, "Well, one side said it's theirs, one side says it's theirs. How can we truly know whose it is? Like, who can never really say?" Jerusalem is Palestinian land. This is not something that's disputed or in question. It's land that's being occupied by the Israelis that they're trying to steal more and more of. The 1967 agreement, which everyone kind of recognizes, would be the best in terms of a two-state solution, clearly allocates Jerusalem because it's part of the West Bank as Palestinian territory. So Jerusalem is currently occupied by Israel. Now imagine that someone running to be the leader of the opposition and eventually the UK Prime Minister is seriously suggesting that we should move our embassy to occupied territory. Now, needless to say, we already legitimized the occupation, in every way we can possibly think of. But now he's calling for this as, even more policy. And this is not what's grabbing the headlines. It's bombastic nonsense about, having a Star of David at, every entry point in the UK. And so going beyond the normal Palestinian dehumanization we see every day, like using passive voice to describe Israeli atrocities or describing Israelis with a lot more humanity and agency compared to the Palestinians, this is also another tactic they use to kind of flatten the debate and basically make the conversation seem very convoluted. In fact, we're in the UK, even in according to the UK law, no, the Foreign Office recognizes the West Bank and Gaza to be occupied territory. So this goes against the law of our country. But you have someone running for this kind of office talking about the fact that this is something you want to do, and even making statements like, "Oh, if they don't do it, I'll do it myself," just to appeal to this section of the voting bloc, which doesn't even represent all Jews in the UK. But this is not what the media is choosing to focus on. The Star of David kind of conversation is a bit of a red herring because it makes him seem stupid and bombastic. But if he gets in and eventually wins, this is how the conversation gets shifted further to the right because Liz Truss and previous leadership hopefuls have all said, "Oh, I'm going to move the embassy to Jerusalem," but they didn't really do it because there would have been massive resistance, I imagine. But something that America's already done, and Israel would love for the UK to follow suit and legitimize the occupation, in more ways than they're currently already doing. So I wanted to keep this update short, so I think I'll leave it there. I think again that was quite an important thing to focus on, and it's something that I take pride in doing. I guess when you see stories like this, just as a word of warning, always look for what's not being reported because that's usually way worse than what they're choosing to focus on. I guess the media also works on clicks and clickbait in this case, so even though that was obviously very stupid of him to say, it fit naturally into the clickbait that everyone would love to see them, kind of mock. Whereas what he actually said, which deserves far more scrutiny, is the fact that he plans to go against legal opinion in the UK by moving the embassy to Jerusalem and on occupied territory. That's quite crazy. So yeah, I'll leave it there and thank you guys for watching. I'll speak to you guys on the next update.